It's a shake-up that stunned the world when the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia ordered the arrests of royals, ministers and business executives in what he calls a corruption crackdown. Hello, I'm Arden Naidu and this is The Heat. Historians are calling it a critical moment in Saudi Arabia's history, one that could gradually turn the conservative kingdom into a moderate nation. Earlier this month, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the arrests of over 200 prominent Saudis accused of corruption. The government says the crackdown is all an effort to clean up the economy and attract foreign investors. Prince Mohammed has already proposed a series of economic and social changes under the banner of Saudi Vision 2030 in an effort to modernize the kingdom's economy and end its dependence on oil revenue. For more on Saudi's crackdown and where it will lead, let's get straight to our panel. Here with us in the studio is Jamal Khashoggi. He's a Saudi journalist, columnist and author. Also with us is Fahad Nazer. He's a consultant for the Embassy of Saudi Arabia in Washington, D.C. From Detroit, we're joined by Maysar Jabr. She's a Saudi journalist and the founder and executive director of Saudi Efforts, a digital media platform. And Hussein Ibish is a senior resident scholar with the Arab Gulf States Institute right here in Washington, D.C. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Jamal, let me start with you. If we look at the recent events in Saudi Arabia, there are two ways of looking at this. One is that it's an effort at radical reform. The other is that it's a crackdown by the prince to consolidate power. What's your take?
It is both. It is a crackdown, it is reform, it is a white revolution, but it is just like a coup without the first communique. We don't have details of what happened. Today I received two important information. If I was an editor of a newspaper and those information are confirmed, they are worth of page one in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, but I cannot confirm it. And I'm not gonna say it here, but it is the kind of things the Saudis are receiving every day. It's a huge area Saudi Arabia has become for all kind of rumors and gossip. But what is decisive, what is a fact, that there's a crackdown on about 200 plus royals and important business people in Saudi Arabia. There is a true recession, there is a crackdown on the media, a crackdown on the clergies, a crackdown on intellectuals, and on the same time, there are reforms.
How is that reform, cracking down on the media, cracking down on religious freedom?
That is not reform, of course, but I'm talking siding with all those crackdowns. There are talks of reform, like Prince Mohammed bin Salman is promising to eradicate extremism in Saudi Arabia, and we need that. And he is promising to eradicate corruption, and we need that. But he's doing all of those positive things in the midst of silencing other opinions.
Fahad, the prince has taken control of the armed forces, he's taken control of the security services, economic planning, oil policy. Is this a power grab masquerading as reform?
No, I don't believe it is, actually, and I don't see it as a radical reform. I see it as necessary reform. I think that the Saudi leadership has charted a very clear course for the future of the kingdom, and it has unveiled Vision 2030, which is an ambitious and broad package of economic and social reforms. Now, the vision has a number of pillars, if you will, that will be the key to its success, and those include transparency, accountability, and efficiency. So the recent measures that were taken by the Saudi leadership, I think, are very consistent with this measure. Now, prior to the arrests, a royal decree was actually issued, creating a new body, a high commission to counter corruption. The language of the decree was very direct. It said that corruption has been a problem in the past. It has hampered the development of the Saudi economy, and that going forward, it will be treated as the serious crime that it is. So nobody will be allowed to abuse their power. Nobody will be allowed to misuse government funds. So these are necessary measures, and I think they have wide support from the Saudi population based on what I see on social media and other outlets as well.
Okay, let's bring in Maysar Jabr, who's out in Detroit. Maysar, what is your view on this? We've seen these Saudi royals, these business people, ministers being swept up in this. Do you think it's about reform? And if it's about reform, is this the way to go about it?
By my point, these reforms stand by these people and Saudi citizens to develop the country, and it's open many opportunity to them for many things like a job or something like that. We need to start a new page by the Saudi Vision 2030. So I think it's all necessary from many years ago, and it's like a positive thing for us.
Hussein Ibish, in May 2017, the Prince was interviewed by the Al Arabiya television network, and he said, in part, if fighting corruption is not on the top of the agenda, it means the king's fight is not succeeding. I reiterate that anyone who is involved in corruption will not be spared. We're also hearing reports that bank accounts holding billions of dollars have been frozen. What's your view on that?
Well, I think I agree with the other panelists. I think that this has a strong political and ultimately social and cultural dimension. At the same time, it's clearly a crackdown on people. Now, whether it's primarily about corruption or about corruption and about political power and about creating a new regime, you could look at this as an extension of a natural process whereby an incoming king who has already consolidated powers of reorganizing things in preparation for radical moves that I think they are necessary, but they also are quite radical if they're to succeed. At the same time, you could also look at it as a kind of, we don't have a good word in English, but in Spanish they call it an autogolpe, a self-coup. In other words, where the existing power structure restructures the government without a change at the very top. And I think there's a lot of that going on here. In a way, the upper echelon underneath the king and the crown prince is sort of being swept away. And the message from the anti-corruption message, but it's also a political and cultural message, is the old way of doing business, a fairly decentralized within the royal family, within the elite, different fiefdoms, different power holdings, different sort of areas of influence, that's over. And that this agenda is so ambitious that it's going to be done from the top down.
Jamal, if we look at this, and we look at Saudi leadership, isn't there some kind of tenuous balance among the different parties in the leadership in Saudi Arabia, different parts of the family, that has to be maintained? This is upsetting that it might be causing resentment on the part of some people, which in turn could lead to instability.
I don't expect resentments. There is no power center in Saudi Arabia today other than the king himself, and beneath him, the crown prince. Saudi Arabia should not be seen like those Arab republics where there is the president and his cousin and his brother who control various parts of the military or intelligence and who will maintain a balance. A Saudi soldier or a general, his loyalty to the divine ruler, the king, not to his immediate superior.
But traditionally, has not power been distributed? You
Yes.
have the king, the crown prince, and it's distributed.
That's true. Yeah. But history lit out of that. The passing of the brothers who inherited the throne from the founder of the kingdom, King Abdul Aziz, and who shared power up to 2000s and what would say 15, all passed away.
Yeah.
Natural course of history. And now we understand Mohammed bin Salman much better. When he started elevating to power, he did not allow that Politburo style to come up again. He made sure that he will be the sole leader in the kingdom. He did not even invite a brother of his to share power with him. So right now, the leadership in Saudi Arabia is very vertical. And it is all about MBS alone. Yeah. So that style of ruling that existed for about 60 years, it is not there. And MBS made a point of not bringing it back again. There were pluses to that style, rule by consensus, not with us, the people, but within the family. Right now, even that consensus within the family don't exist. The the great leader. He is who will lead us to the future, who will either succeed or fail. It all lays in him and around him.
Right. Fahad, what do you make of the manner in which these changes are being implemented right now? I mean, if you're a foreign investor sitting out there wanting to invest your money in Saudi Arabia, you're going to sit it out for a little while, aren't you?
No, not necessarily. In fact, I would think that the measures that have been implemented actually should be reassuring to foreign investors. Because, frankly, some foreign investors over the years have complained perhaps privately about a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability in the way that business is done in Saudi Arabia. And these measures should actually prove reassuring. You know, the issue of corruption, like I said, has been a problem in Saudi Arabia for a while. And there's a very recent example that really showcases just how dire a problem it is. So just yesterday, there were heavy rains in my hometown of Jeddah. Yeah. Many areas of the city flooded almost immediately. Now, this was not the first, second, or third time that this has happened. These problems have happened over and over again. And this is what King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman are addressing. It is a question of, frankly, poor planning, poor implementation in some cases, poor remediation.
Well,
so it's not just
fraudulent public works,
right,
to be frank.
Right. So it's not just a question of people misusing their power or misusing public funds. It's also a question of competence. So if you abuse your power, you will be held to account. And if you're incompetent, frankly, you will also be held accountable for that. And these are serious matters. It's not just a question of money being siphoned off from the public treasury. People's lives are at stake in this case. And I think this is ultimately where these
Let me ask you
reforms
this.
are
There is a very powerful religious establishment in Saudi Arabia. Do they support these changes?
As far as I can tell, they do. You know, Saudi Arabia there's the perception that it's an absolute monarchy and that the king is the only decision maker. I'm not sure that that has ever been the case, to be honest. I think that there has always been rule by consensus. Various segments of the Saudi population have always had a role and a voice in decision-making, political decision-making. So, for instance, if we look at the past 25 years, a number of political institutions have been created. I often cite the Shura Council as a primary example. So in that body, it's an advisory body that was created in 1992, I believe. Initially, it only had 60 members. Today, it has 150 members, including 30 women. Every region is included. Every sect in Saudi Arabia is included. It has very lively public, open debates for the most part. The media covers it. They cover very serious issues. And this is in addition to the fact that you've had municipal councils that have been elected. Again, everybody participates, including women. Women have not only voted, they have actually run and won seats. There's a National Dialogue Center in Riyadh that I visited last year that has done tremendous work bringing some of these challenges to a public discussion, bringing various people from various ends of the political and religious end of the spectrum to tackle and to address some of the pressing challenges that the kingdom faces.